This is Mrs. Phillips.
And this is Mr. Phillips.
And today we're going to talk about the different ways that you can read to someone. The first two ways you already know. It's read one book or two books and stopping and checking for understanding. So pretend, like you can see, Mr. Phillips and I sitting elbow to elbow and knee to knee, and we're also going to pretend that we're using super soft voices so that other people cannot hear us. Okay, so we're going to show you the first one, which is use one book and then stop and check for understanding. Keb needs a home. The life of a hermit crab isn't so bad. They live near the seashore and they bask in the warm sun. They bathe in the salty sea and they play in the surf. The views are great too. Sunrises and sunsets can be pretty spectacular, and you can't beat the night sky with all its twinkling stars. Now we're going to stop, and Tim is going to check for understanding.
So what we've just read is that hermit crabs have good lives because they get to sit around and play in the sun and sand all day. And they also like to look at sunsets and sunrises because it's beautiful and the stars are twinkling.
Yep, that's what we read about. So now it's Tim's turn.
But for one hermit crab, life was not so great. You see, Keb was a hermit crab of spectacular proportions. You might think that being the biggest crab on the seashore had its advantages. However, for Keb, the advantages were few and far between.
So what I heard you reading is that life was pretty good for the hermit crabs except for one hermit crab named Keb, because he was of spectacular proportions. He was a really big crab. And I guess a lot of bad things happened to him. He had a lot of disadvantages for being big for some reason. Is that what you were reading about?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
and
so.
Remember, second graders, if the person who stops and checks for understanding doesn't have it quite right, you go back and reread. Now you can do the same thing with two different books, stopping and taking turns, reading your pages and having your partner check for understanding. So now I want to show you a couple new ways that you can read to someone. The first one is called choral reading. Choral reading just means you and your partner read the same thing at the same time. Okay, so Mr. Phillips, Tim, we're going to choral read together. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. The life of a hermit crab isn't so bad. They live near the seashore and they bask in the warm sun. They bathe in the salty sea and they play in the surf. So then we would just continue on to the next page. Ready? The views are great too. Sunrises and sunsets can be pretty spectacular, and you can't beat the night sky with all its twinkling stars. When we choral read, when we read at the same time, we don't necessarily stop and check for understanding. But you could if you wanted to. It's always a good strategy. So that one was called choral reading, where you read at the same time. There's another way you could read to someone, and it's called echo reading. And it's just like an echo. One person reads a page, and then the second person reads the same page. It's like an echo, a repetition. The person who has the smoothest fluency should usually go first. And if you and your partner have the same fluency, then you can just do rock, paper, scissors or something and figure out who would like to go first. So Tim and I both have pretty good fluency. So do you want to go first? Okay, I'll go first. The life of a hermit crab isn't so bad. They live near the seashore and they bask in the warm sun. They bathe in the salty sea and they play in the surf.
The life of a hermit crab isn't so bad. They live near the seashore and they bask in the warm sun. They bathe in the salty sea and they play in the surf.
And then we would continue on. I would keep reading first, and then the partner would echo read through your book. So as you read to someone today, now you can read one book or two books and check for understanding. You can choral read, reading at the same time, or echo reading, repeating one after the other. Happy reading!